first thing we need to do for our flutter sleeve is to create a casing for the elastic. To do this, fold the top of the sleeve 1 inch towards the wrong side of the fabric. Top stitch the first line of stitching 1/8 inch from the raw edge and then 1/2 inch above that. Then we will feed our elastic through the casing. Grab your favorite pair of squeezers or a safety pin and feed the elastic through the casing. When you feed the elastic through the casing, pin each side of the elastic down. Repeat this process with the opposite flutter, and then we will baste the elastic to secure. Open up your bodice so that you can see the right side of the lining and main fabric. I like to lay my flutter out so that I can see how it's going to sit when wearing. Place the flutter right sides together with the main bodice fabric. The folded edge of the flutter scoots right up to where the seam of the main and the lining fabric is at the neckline. Place a pin here to begin. Continue to pin the flutter between the two layers, and remember the flutter will not extend the entire armscye. Repeat this process with the opposite side. Opening the bodices up, flutter goes right sides together with the main bodice fabric, and pin along the armscye. Now we will sew or serge to complete this seam. To complete, open the back bodice so that you can see the main and lining fabric. Lay the flutter out so you can see what it will look like when worn. Place the flutter right sides together with the back bodice main fabric, scooching it right up to the seam of the neckline. Bring the back bodice main and lining fabric right sides together, sandwiching the flutter between. Pin along the armscye. Repeat this process with the opposite side of your back bodice and sew or serge the seam to complete. Now we will close our flutter sleeve bodice with enclosed seams. Open the back bodice, main and lining fabric so that you can see the right sides of the fabric. Lay the front bodice right sides together with the back bodice. You can choose to cross the front bodice over whichever direction you would like. Ensure that all the layers of the front bodice and the back bodice main fabric are together along the side seams. Fold the back bodice lining fabric over all of the layers that we just laid out. Pin or clip along the side seams. Repeat this process on the opposite side, pinning or clipping along the side seams. Sew or serge to complete this seam. Prepare your puff sleeve by folding the top and bottom edges of your sleeve 1 inch towards the wrong side of the fabric. Create the elastic casing by sewing 1/8 inch away from the top raw edge and 1/2 inch away from that stitching. Feed the elastic through the casing with your favorite squeezers or a safety pin. Pin each end of the elastic and secure. Baste the ends of the elastic to the sleeve. Leave the bottom of the sleeve alone at this time. To attach your puff sleeve, open your front bodice, main, and lining fabric so that you are looking at the right sides of the fabric. I like to lay my sleeve out so that I can see what it will look like when worn. Remember, the front of the sleeve has a longer arm side than the back of the sleeve. Place the sleeve right sides together with the main bodice fabric. Scoot the top folded edge of the sleeve up to the seam. Bring the lining right sides together with the main bodice fabric, pinning along the armscye. Repeat this process with the opposite side. Sew or serge to complete this seam. To attach the sleeve to the back bodice, we will repeat the same process we just followed. Place the right side of the sleeve fabric to the right side of the back bodice main fabric. Sandwich the sleeve between the back bodice, main, and lining fabric. Sew or serge to complete that seam. Repeat once again with the remaining sleeve and back bodice. To finish the side seams, bring the back bodice, main fabric, right sides together with the front bodice, main fabric. Unfold the memory, fold the bottom edge of the sleeve. Pin or clip along the side seams. Sew or serge to complete this seam. Repeat this process with the opposite side of the bodice. Now we need to create an elastic casing for the bottom of the puff sleeve. Sew the first row of stitching 1/8 inch away from the raw edge of the sleeve, leaving a 1-inch gap. Sew the second row of stitching 1/2 inch from the first row of stitching, all the way around. Feed the elastic through the gap we left in the first row of stitching, using your favorite squeezers or a safety pin. Ends of the elastic together and sew to secure, leaving a 1/4 inch overhang of elastic past the stitching. Top stitch the gap to close and repeat this process with the opposite side. Follow along with either the flutter sleeve or the puff sleeve tutorial to add the elastic to the top of your flowy sleeve. I've added a rolled hem to the bottom of my flowy sleeve, but that is optional. Remember, the back side of your sleeve will have a shorter arm side than the front side of your sleeve. It may also seem difficult to tell where the arm side of the sleeve ends and the side seam of the sleeve ends. When you are attaching, make sure not to stretch. Open your bodice, fabric, main, and lining so that you're looking at the right sides of the fabric. Place the sleeve right sides together with the main bodice fabric, scooting the folded edge of your sleeve to the seam. Pin or clip between the main and lining fabrics. Remember, do not stretch as you go. Sew or serge to complete this seam along the arm side only. Repeat this process with the opposite side of the front bodice. To add the back bodice, we are going to repeat this process with the back side of the sleeve. Sandwich the sleeve between the back bodice main and lining fabric, pinning or clipping along the arm side. You can check to make sure that you've left out the correct amount of sleeve by comparing to the front side of your bodice. Sew or serge to complete this seam. Place your front bodice, main fabric, right side facing up. Bring the back bodice right sides together with the front bodice. Pin or clip along the side seam and sew or serge to complete. Repeat this process with the opposite side. Bring the front and back bodice main fabric right sides together. Pin or clip along the side seam and sew or serge to complete this seam. After hemming, add a gathering stitch to the top raw edge of your skirt. Adjust the gathers to be the same width as the front bodice. Begin pinning your skirt to your bodice, starting at the side seams. Adjust the gathers along the front side of the bodice, pinning or clipping as you go. Flip to the back side of the bodice. Adjust the skirt gathers to match the front side of the bodice. Begin pinning or clipping either side of the back bodice to the skirt, being mindful of the gathers we just set. Sew or serge all the way around the skirt. To complete the skirt, we will place the elastic on the skirt side of the back bodice, between the two back bodice pieces, leaving a 1/4 inch overhang. Begin by clipping the elastic at one side of the back bodice. Bring the other side of the elastic to the other side of the back bodice. Pin the remaining elastic between the skirt, stretching as you go. To attach, sew or serge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You may find your skirt is too heavy and you may want to add elastic to the entire seam. Fold the skirt away from the bodice. Between the back bodice pieces, locate the elastic and pin or clip the elastic to the skirt. Adjust your gathers as you go. Top stitch the elastic using a form of a stretch stitch. So either a zigzag stitch, a lightning bolt stitch, or a triple stitch to secure.